Gynocriticism. Elaine Showalter. Elaine Showalter is a famous American feminist scholar. She tried to reconstruct the past of women literature, rediscovering the women writers who were obscured by the past, and most importantly, establishing an unbroken literary tradition for women. Elaine Showalter is a famous American feminist scholar. She wanted to reconstruct the past of women literature. She realized that there were gaps in the women literary tradition. There are gaps in the female literary tradition. And she tried to fill these gaps. She tried to reconstruct the past of women literature, rediscovering the women writers who were obscured by the past. There were many women writers who were obscured by the past, who were ignored in literary history, who were obscured by the past. She tried to establish an unbroken literary tradition for women. Just like the male literary tradition, she wanted an unbroken literary tradition for women, rediscovering the women writers who were obscured by the past. ചരിത്രത്തിൽ തമസ്കരിക്കപ്പെട്ട സ്ത്രീ എഴുത്തുകാരെ കണ്ടെത്താൻ ശ്രമിച്ചു. മെയിൽ ലിറ്റററി ട്രഡീഷൻ പോലെ തന്നെ ഒരു ഫീമെയിൽ ലിറ്റററി ട്രഡീഷൻ ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ ശ്രമിച്ചു. Elaine Showalter proposes three stages for feminist literary criticism. Three stages of feminist literary criticism. She designates these three stages as the feminine, feminist, and female in her book A Literature of Their Own. In her seminal work, A Literature of Their Own, she proposes three stages of feminist literary criticism. They are feminine, feminist, and female. First, there is a prolonged phase of imitation of the prevailing modes of the dominant tradition. Uh, First, it is the feminine stage. Feminine stage. It is a period of imitation, imitation of the male writers, imitation of the prevailing modes of the dominant tradition, imitating the patriarchal values, and internalization of its standards of art and its views on social roles. So, first, it is the stage of imitation. Women tried to imitate the male tradition, and They tried to internalize the patriarchal values, its standards of art, and its views on social roles. The second stage is the feminist phase. Feministic phase. It is the phase of protest. In this second stage, the feminist phase, women protested. Women began to protest against the discriminations, protest against these standards and values. What she imitated at first, the patriarchal values, patriarchal standards. In this stage, she protests against all these, all types of discrimination. Feminine stage, feminine stage, third stage. It is the period of feminine stages 1840 to 1880. In this period, women writers were imitating male writers. This is the first stage. Again, about the first stage, feminine stage. The period is between 1840 and 1880. In this period, women writers were imitating male writers. They were trying to be on an equal footing with men writers. So, in this stage, the women wanted to be equal with the men, to be equal with men. That was their aim, their motto. Showalter says that the women writers, especially novelists in England, used male pseudonyms during this period. Using male pseudonyms. Pseudonym means pen name. Women wrote using a pen name, a male pseudonym. George Eliot would be a suitable example. George Eliot. Her real name is Mary Ann Evans. This is a pseudonym, George Eliot. Feminist stage, second stage. The period of the feminist stage is 1880 to 1920. It is marked by the historic event of suffrage for women, campaigns for suffragette, uh, campaigns for suffrage for women, voting right, campaigns for the right to vote. So women did not have voting right. The feminist stage is marked by these suffragette movement, the struggle for the campaigns for the voting right. Empowered by such developments, women writers began to protest against the values of patriarchy predominant in their times through their literary endeavors. So, women tried to protest against the patriarchal values through their literary endeavors in literature by writing books. The third stage is female stage. Finally, there is a phase of self discovery. This is the stage of self discovery, a turning inward, freed from some of the dependency of opposition, a search for identity. So, this stage is characterized by a search for identity, self discovery. In this stage, women tried to avoid all types of dependency, remove all types of dependency. She calls it female face. So, imitation is the characteristic of the first stage, feminine stage. Protest is the characteristic of the second stage, feminist stage. So, in this stage, women realize that both the imitation and protest are also a type of dependency, dependency on the male. She wants to be free from all types of dependency. At this stage, men are not in the picture. She calls it a female face. Yes, to the feminist content. In the writing of the feminine period writers, she remarks that it was typically oblique, displaced, ironic, and subversive. So the feminist content in the first stage, feminine stage, when women began to write using pen names, pseudonyms, the feminist content is not direct, something direct. It is ironic, indirect, subversive, oblique, displaced. So the feminist, there was not a direct challenge of patriarchy in the first stage. The feminist content is something indirect. You will understand it when you read between the lines. The female phase started in 1920 and continues. So, this period is marked by emancipation from all types of dependency on male agency. The third stage, the female stage, it is marked by emancipation from all types of dependency. There is no imitation of male writers, no protest. So it is free from all types of dependency on the male. The female writers abstained from both imitation and protest in their literary expressions. According to Showalter, the writers found the female experience as a source for autonomous literary expression. They also began to experiment in forms and techniques in search of a feminist poetics. This also includes experiments in language. So, in the third stage, women tried experiments in language. They began to experiment in forms and techniques of language. Showalter divides feminist criticism into two, women as readers and women as writers. Showalter divides feminist criticism into two, women as readers and women as writers. The first category, women as readers. In the first category, women are the consumers of literature produced by men. In the first category, Women are just consumers of literature produced by men. Showalter calls this the feminist critique. To her, it's a historically grounded inquiry. So the first category she calls it a feminist critique, where women are consumers of literature produced by men. They are never creators of literature. It will also probe how women are portrayed in literary works and how dominant narratives are constructed with conscious omissions and misconceptions. So it probes how women are portrayed in literary works. Showalter states that feminist critique is concerned with the exploitation and manipulation of the female audience, especially in popular culture and films. It also probes, inquires, probes the exploitation and manipulation of the female audience, how female audience are manipulated in popular culture and films, how women are exploited, manipulated in popular culture and films. Feminist critique probes. It is feminist critique is concerned with the exploitation and manipulation of the female audience, especially in popular culture and films. The second type of feminist criticism is termed by Showalter as gynocriticism. The second type of feminist criticism is gynocriticism, which is an adaptation of the French word gynocritique. So she took the term gynocriticism from the French word gynocritique. According to Showalter, gynocriticism studies women writers as a distinct literary tradition. It begins at the point when we free ourselves from the linear absolutes of male literary history, stop trying to fit women between the lines of the male tradition, and focus instead on the newly visible world of female culture. So it happens when women stop trying to fit women between the lines of the. It begins when women stop their dependency on the male tradition and focus on the visible world of female culture. So it to make it an autonomous expression of female experience. Gynocritics explore the possibility and problems of a female language. Feminist criticism is political and indebted to Marxism and structuralism. On the other hand, gynocriticism is theoretically autonomous. So, the difference between feminist criticism and gynocriticism. Feminist critique is male oriented. It is more about what men think about women than what women themselves think and feel. So it is about what men think about women, not what women themselves think and feel. So the women characters in the novels written by male writers. In these novels, we see women created by male writers. We see what men think about women, not what women themselves think and feel. Real female experience can be expressed only when women write. On the contrary, gynocriticism is concerned with constructing a female framework for the analysis of women's literature.